The Iranian supreme leader has just addressed his people in a televised speech, declaring victory over Israel and the US. But the language that he has used for Donald Trump will not go down well with the US president, particularly in the wake of the statements that he's been making on Iran in the last few days. The Ayatollah's speech has come amidst a raging debate on the US B 2 stealth bomber's failure to destroy Iranian nuclear facilities, particularly the one at Fordo. What has also added embarrassment to the Donald Trump administration is the US president's announcement to effectively lift the sanctions on Tehran. This is why opinions are now sharply changing in favor of Iran, with many concluding that Iran indeed ultimately emerged as the winner in this 12-day war with Israel. The Ayatollah, in his speech, mocked the US for Trump's social media post asking Iran to surrender. He also posted a series of tweets on Twitter before his TV address. He wrote, and I quote, "My congratulations on our dear Iran's victory over the US regime. The US regime entered the war directly because it felt that if it didn't, the Zionist regime would be completely destroyed. It entered the war in an effort to save the regime, but achieved nothing." End quote. In another social media post, the Iranian supreme leader wrote, and I quote, "The fact that the Islamic Republic has access to key US centers in the region and can take action whenever it deems necessary is a significant matter. Such an action can be repeated in the future too. Should any aggression occur, the enemy will definitely pay a heavy price." End quote. And then he concluded by stating the US president stated Iran must surrender. Needless to say, this statement is too big to come out of the US president's mouth. End quote. Meanwhile, US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth once again held an emergency press conference at the Pentagon to desperately claim that his country had indeed managed to destroy the Iranian nuclear facility at Fordo. Today, he referred to a statement made by the CIA director.
Sir, you cited a body of credible intelligence to suggest the damage at Fordo and other places. What is that referring to, and when can we see it?
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine, the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know. And he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence, and that's what he's basing it on.
Clip. Somebody explained to him that just like him, the CIA director too was appointed by Trump. Does he really think that the CIA director would dare to say anything which would publicly contradict Donald Trump? The admission of failure to destroy the Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordo would raise questions on the US administration's desperation to enforce a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. It would also be an admission on Israel's defeat, as claimed by the Ayatollah. But regardless of what the two warring parties, namely Iran and Israel, would say about each other's claims, you have to listen to Steve Bannon, a former top strategist of President Trump. Even he has concluded that the US president calling for a ceasefire in a hurry was primarily to save Israel, adding that the settler colony had bitten off more than it could chew.
This ceasefire was as much to save Israel. That's the hidden story here. They bit off way more than they could chew. They were played out as far. Yesterday was a brutal day for the citizens of Israel. Took horrible incomings, particularly in Tel Aviv, and I guess Beersheba also. They needed this because they were running out of defensive ammunition. And President Trump stepped in there with the help of Qatar. Look, we've come a long way since 7 years ago when Qatar, would not work with us on stopping the financing of Islamic terrorism, the financing of it. And they come a long way. They've stepped in the middle of the situation in Gaza, and they stepped in the middle here, and President Trump is going out of his way to praise them. And he's not going out of his way to praise Netanyahu's government, which I think is getting to be an issue.
Meanwhile, Steve Witkoff, he has said that Trump's decision to lift the sanctions on Iran was to ensure that the Islamic Republic could rebuild the country and also to earn the much needed goodwill of Iranians.
The president lifted and the administration lifted some of the sanctions on Iran to be able to ship crude oil to China yesterday as well. Why was that necessary? And how does that perhaps create the beginning of a pathway towards this more prosperous Iran that you speak of?
Well, I think it was a signal from the president. You know, he's got this uncanny ability to take the temperature of how people are feeling about certain things. I think, you know, this was a signal to the Chinese that we want to work with you, that we're not interested in hurting your economy. We're interested in working together with you in unison. And hopefully that becomes a signal to the Iranians. So I think it was a great decision, and I'm not sure if it was unexpected or not, but I have come to expect President Trump doing these sorts of things that people look at and say, wow, that's a pretty smart, prudent economic move.
We see so much money.
There is a third angle that's being floated, and that is gaining momentum on social media, which is that the reason why Trump has lifted the sanctions on Iran is because that was the precondition. According to them, Israelis desperately wanted a ceasefire because of the hammering they were receiving. Iran was not in a mood to agree to a ceasefire. So the Tehran put a condition, and that condition was lifting of sanctions. That is a third theory that is gaining momentum. This is where the current Iranian government has to exercise caution. This could be a ploy to catch Iran off guard once again. Only fools do not learn from their mistakes. Iran has to learn from its mistakes and sanitize its intelligence network and build a far robust one. Maybe it should take the help of the Russians or the Chinese. Do not make the mistake of trusting the West, whether they are politicians, NGOs, or media personnel. Wouldn't if I was the Ayatollah. Not after seeing Israel using its spy agents to assassinate top Iranian generals and nuclear scientists. The likes of the BBC has already started their campaign to manufacture unrest in the country. You only have to read a propaganda piece on the BBC website today to understand my argument. This piece is written by someone from the BBC Persian service who doesn't even live in Iran. He is based in London. Being true to the BBC propaganda, the author of this piece repeatedly claims many people are seething in anger against the so-called Iranian regime, but provides no evidence to support his claim. And the BBC has been heavily promoting this item on its website since morning. As expected, this publicly funded propaganda outlet has not carried a similar piece looking at the unrest amongst Israelis post this war against war criminal Benjamin Netanyahu. So much for the BBC's impartiality. Hence my caution to the Iranian government. Do not say you were not warned. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform and our journalism on buymeacoffee.com and Patreon. If you do think that our journalism is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details are there in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.